the most boring teachers do the exact way the curriculum says, and they follow all the rules, and it's just very boring and bland because they just make us take notes, read out of the book, and then we have a test. But he lets us talk about it, which I think we're a very talkative group, and we always talk about our opinions, and I think that's the way that teachers should let children do, is talk about what they're learning. Part of it is the way that they're raised, and if they're raised in a home that does not inspire to go to college or to do good in your classes, then those kids do not want to do that.
How could we change the home? We can't just take children and give them to parents who will inspire them to do better in school.
Here's a quote from Waiting for Superman. Their academic future will be decided by a school official who will place them on a track. Students placed on lower tracks usually have lower expectations and often worse teachers. Kids could be placed on lower tracks because they earned low test scores or they're failing a core class. Whatever the reason, some students, once placed on that lower track, will encounter less effective teachers, classes with low expectations, and less challenging material.
Although I agree with you to a certain extent, I must say, once you get picked on a track, it's not set in stone. I was placed in advanced English at the beginning of the year, and I had to work really hard to get into this class, but I did. I had to push pretty hard, but I did get into this class. So if you have the drive, you can get into the higher classes, even if you're not placed in them.
I know when I transferred to Ponderosa, I was at a county school. I transferred to Ponderosa because they took all they cared about was your last Oak score to determine if you were in advance or not. So I spent my entire 7th grade year in normals classes and then kept working my way up to get there. So it is you can get there, but you have to have more drive than intelligence to get there. It's not just based on intelligence. If you're placed in the higher thing, it's more based on intelligence, drive. If you're placed in the lower track and trying to get on the higher track, it determines on how much drive you have and how hard you're willing to work to get there. That more than 1/3 of U.S. students who enter a full-time 2-year college program drop out just after 1 year. So I'm saying, since we're under-preparing them, like in middle school, we're starting at the middle school, we start with honors, advanced, anything like that, we're already separating them to be better off. And the people that are on a lower track and aren't smart enough to get up on the higher track, they feel like I still want to go to college, I still want to do something with my life, and they get there and they're not prepared for everything they need to do.
In 2 sophomore literature classes at Clemson University, instructor sought to subvert the roles of teachers by dividing the class into small reading groups. And basically they ruled out the banking concept, and they let the students research certain things and present what they found. And the teacher's role was to facilitate the learning and not provide it. So why don't we try something like that? Why hasn't it, if this has worked, why hasn't it been spread more?
The most effective principals are the principals who define their rules as facilitators of teachers' success rather than instructional leaders. So that's going back to instruction. They need to lead the teachers, and they need to be able to give them the relationships and bonds they need to have success. Because they've done research that prove when you are using social capital more than human capital, that the students do better on tests, because they feel like I want to bring up, I have a health teacher and he's very passionate about what he teaches, and I feel like it's easier for me to learn that way rather than him just reading out a textbook. He actually really gets into it and gets to the point and tells me what he wants me to learn, and it's easier for me to relate it to my actual life, and therefore I think I did better on the test because I was able to get more into it and be more involved with it.
In elementary school, I've gone to 3 different ones, but the one I went to most of my life was Fairview, and the principal there, I saw very much, there was interaction between him and the students, him and the teachers, and the teachers with the students, and it was a much better social capital. Versus when I was in Canada, the principal that I had there was much more of, if you saw her, it was more of an instructional leader than interactions between the teachers or with students.
One of our questions is what is currently working. I think Avid is honestly helping. I'm an Avid, Rachel's an Avid, and I don't know about how Avid is helping other students, but I know for me mine's not so much for trying to bring you up from the lower tracks to the higher tracks, because I know that's how it is for some students, some students have algebra AB and want to get into algebra 1 or geometry or something. That's not the case for me. I'm in the top track, but I think mine is more for paying for college and knowing how to get to college so I could be more successful with what I do.
No Child Left Behind Act started a lot of testing and a lot of test preparations, but colleges started saying that high schools were producing graduates who were drilled regularly on basic skills, but were often ignorant about almost everything else. They continued to complain that there was poor preparation of entering students who not only had meager knowledge of the world, but still required remediation in basic skills. So I feel that AVID is helping a lot with the basic skill part of it and how you can have the drive and the determination to get into college and or not even just to get into college, but to just go through life with that willpower to, work harder. And I think that the tracking system, that it can work if we help students have the drive for that. That they have the drive to move up to honors or move up to advanced. Because if they don't want to do that, I think that's their problem. And, well, not necessarily their problem. I think that it's everybody's problem because we're not helping them get that determination, and then they aren't wanting that determination.
I had a certain teacher last year that did AVID, and I know she was able to inspire that in a lot of kids, but there just aren't enough teachers that do that to make enough of a difference. But I think an easy solution is in those few teachers that do inspire that.
So maybe students who are more into music or art, they should be able to go into that and have that as a more important topic, because that will increase their drive and their motivation.
That if we want our teenagers to think, we need to help them develop non-cognitive traits like determination, grit, and self-control. I think because we're thinking about creativity and literature. Well, the third thing I think is non-cognitive skills like determination, stuff that you can't teach someone. That's their own personal value. That's something they have to find in themselves. And as also complaining with Dylan, I agree, I had the same teacher last year who I think inspired a lot of kids. We had a combined class, and they both cared about, they taught us, but they also really cared about us going farther in our future, going farther with our lives, and doing something with our lives. They really they're passionate about what they're teaching. And going with everyone was saying about teaching, if we have good teachers like that, I'm sure, yes, some people didn't like them because they were hard, but they taught us what we need to learn, and they really cared about what we did, and they cared about all of us.
Yeah, a lot of the parents and people didn't like those teachers, but really those were the teachers that were teaching us and actually teaching us valuable life lessons, as well as teaching us the curriculum. And a lot of teachers and principals and people higher up in the education system are telling them no, you need to stick to the curriculum, just the curriculum, which is the human capital and social capital.
Instead of having teachers that are just extremely smart, I guess we're going more towards just having teachers that are more inspirational, that give you determination. How do we find determined teachers?
Teachers need to love their job. And I think that goes back to the teachers when they're starting their education, they're in high school. It's all kind of comes back, it's like a cycle. If we want teachers who are like the teachers that we want, they need to be educated right when they're in high school. So we have to start now, and then I think eventually it will all cycle back to each other and we'll get more inspirational teachers.
Seemed like if we did good in class today, then he'd tell us a story or something. So it felt like he kind of gave us a reward if we worked hard, and that kind of motivated me to do better.
Some students are I'm never going to use this in my life, but I feel like there's some teachers, like the teacher I had in 6th grade, he could turn anything into how he used it in life. Anything he taught us, he told us how he used it, and it inspired us to learn it, and he was kind of the happy medium between being really smart and being inspirational.
I did not like school. I did not do anything well in school, but then I had that teacher, and not as much as the inspirational, but they showed you that you could do it. He showed that it was able to be done.
As Lawrence Steinberg said, it's what helps to develop the traits, and that the traits such as determination, self-control, and grit, and that the classes that really challenges students to work hard are the ones that cultivate those, and that fewer than 1 in 6 high school students report experiencing. So I think that's something that at Klamath Union we need to start seeing more classes that challenge us.